Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:07. Good morning. It's the 8th day of January. Good to have you here. Thanks for being here. It's O'Connor and Company, your morning conversation about everything that's going on in the world around us. Coming up at 6:35, Jason SNEAD will join us from Honest Elections Project, talk about the voter ID initiative in California. 7:05, Ken Cuccinelli, former DHS official and former Attorney General of Virginia, talk about the shooting in Minnesota. And then at 8:05, Walter Curt, independent investigative journalist. Actually, he's going to join us to talk about the story we're about to discuss right now. And when I say we, I mean me and she, Bethany Mandel. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this fine Thursday morning.
Thank you for being had.
Oh, you always make it weird.
Walter Curt. People will remember Walter Curt. He is a podcaster, young man, independent journalist, independent citizen journalist, similar to Nick Shirley, who sort of blew the lid off of that Somali Learning Center story out of Minneapolis a few weeks ago. Mr. Curt had a big bombshell of his own this year, as he was the journalist who uncovered the story about the two high school students in a Fairfax County high school who had abortions facilitated by a member of the school personnel. It was funded by that, I think it was a counselor, and the parents of those two girls were never told about the situation. Oh, by the way, the whistleblower at Fairfax High School has been disciplined and punished for revealing that this happened. That's Walter Curt for you. And again, Washington Post didn't get that story. None of the local television stations got that story. It was Walter Curt, independent citizen journalist. So when he's got a story, we pay attention. I think that's appropriate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I am all for this latest story about Jubba Daycare.
Jubba Daycare.
How is it real?
Who doesn't want to drop their kids off at Jubba Daycare? So Walter Curt is Ohio-based. He saw what was going on in Minneapolis in Nick Shirley's report, and he recognized that there's a pretty significant Somali community in Columbus, Ohio. And you'll remember the Governor DeWine's office, the governor of Ohio, a Republican, former senator, now governor. They put out a statement through, I think, the chief of staff about what was going on in Minnesota. And I'm paraphrasing, but they literally said, we know that there's some fraud built into these programs, but this is a direct quote, the cost of doing business, unquote. In other words, sure, there's phony groups out there that are robbing taxpayers blind, but, what are you going to do? We're in the business of handing out tax dollars left and right to all these organizations, and sometimes they'll be fraudulent, but that just, that gets... what do they say? It ends up in the wash, That's just it is what it is.
So it's funny because I feel like a dum-dum. I have driven by so many of these Leering centers and Jubba Daycares, and I've thought to myself, who actually drops their child off at these places? And the answer was obvious. No one.
No one does.
No one does.
But they still get funded and they make big bucks. Yep. The best way to make money in the daycare business is to not actually have to spend any money or time taking care of children.
Right. Who wants to do something like that? Ugh.
All right. So Jubba Daycare. Jubba Daycare is a dilapidated storefront that I'm told they do other things there too. It's sort of like a all-in-one stop. You can it's like a 7-Eleven. It's like an insurance company, a travel agency, and a daycare. The daycares received $1.5 million in taxpayer subsidies, just $150,000 in subsidies this week. The same time Governor DeWine's office says, hey, sure, there may be a little fraud. By the way, Jubba is a slang term in Somali for junk food.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. There's a there's a well-known Jubba restaurant in San Jose, California, apparently. Jubba that's just what it means. I'm reading through Walter. Well, here, let's take a listen to Walter Curt's report that he put together. And again, this is inspired by the Nick Shirley report. This is what's let me pause just for a quick second. Bethany, you're in the business of journalism. You work for a major media company, a broadcast network, a local television station or radio station. Let's say you work for a big, well-funded newspaper. You see what Nick Shirley does up in Minneapolis, and you have three choices. One, you can ignore it, which a lot of them have done. Mm-hmm. Two, you can attack Nick Shirley and the Citizen Journalist and decide that the real crime here is what Nick Shirley did in exposing the fraud, which some of them did. Or three, you could actually say, wow, what a great story. Mm-hmm. Let's get our angle on it. Let's use some of our resources, and let's go find some maybe fraud in other Somali communities outside of Minneapolis.
Yep.
Hardly any of them did number three.
Bizarre.
Walter Curt did number three. So here's his report, cut 7.
All right, update from the world of daycare investigations out here in Ohio. We've now been to 5 or 6 different places today that have received over $100,000 in fiscal year 2026 for subsidies, including the Jubba Daycare Center that we went to yesterday. The Jubba Daycare Center, the one that one of our journalists was assaulted at as soon as they walked in the door, has received over $1.5 million in taxpayer dollars over the past number of years. And $155,000 just this year alone. Now, that is incredible based on the outside of the facility. And every other facility we've been to that has had over $100,000 looks very similar. We went to another one called Safe B Child Care Center that, again, it's the same story at every single one of these places. There is blotted out windows. There's nothing that you can see inside of them. In every single place that you go to, they've gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars. You never see any kids in any of these places.
Now, that's the Jubba Daycare investigation. Now, how about the Somali Education Resource Center? And I will say this for them. They spelled the name of their organization correctly on the sign that's on their door. So they're already one up on the Leering Center in Minneapolis. What happens at the Somali Education and Resource Center, an organization that has received $42 million from state and federal taxpayers? These are your dollars. You know, even Republicans fall into this trap, Bethany, when they start talking about these fraudulent organizations where they say they got 42 million tax dollars, or they got 42 million state funds or government funds. No, they're not government funds. They're our funds. Mm-hmm. It's our money. Yep. They take it from us at the point of a gun. Taxation is theft, and they take it from us, and then they give it to them. And in this case, 42 million went to the Somali Education Resource Center. So what happens behind the door of the Somali Education Resource Center? Walter Curt found out. We'll tell you in a moment. It's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Walter Curt, independent journalist, podcaster. He joins us at 8:05. He's been looking into the Somali waste, fraud, and abuse in Ohio. He found the Somali Education and Resource Center. They've received $42 million. It's in an office building, Suite 301. He goes to the door, and here's what he discovered. Cut 8.
All right, guys, so we are here. We found it, finally, all day long. The Somali Education Resource Center, Suite 301 here at 299 East Granville Road in Dublin, Ohio. Now, the deal is that $14 million into this center here. This is a single office. And by the way, there's nothing inside it. We've already looked. It is very, very, very much dark, and it looks like there's maybe a couch inside. So not anything here. Very nice security system, which I found very strange. So I assume that they would probably have now taken our video and everything of us standing out here. But there is nothing here. And again, where's the money? That's the real question. Where is the money? Because the organization is supposedly $42 million over the past few years in taxpayer funding, and we have no access, and we have no idea where it is. So we're just trying to ask some questions here, and we have yet to find anything at all. So we're going to keep looking, guys, but this is what we found so far.
An empty office, dark, with just a sofa and a very expensive security system. Well, I guess if you're trying to protect your $42 million of gold bullion or maybe Jubba junk food. Ohio is a red state. Ohio has a Republican governor and Republican majorities in the House and state Senate. Ohio State Senator Andrew Brenner, he's also the chair of the Education Committee. he saw this story in this report from Walter Curt. He's now announced that he's going to try to claw back that money that was paid to the organization. They're going to mobilize the state government to try to get it. Again, Governor DeWine's office said this is the cost of doing business. Bethany, my favorite part about these stories is that it sort of confirms what we all sort of assume, which is they keep grabbing tax dollars from us. Budgets keep getting bigger. We're spending money we don't have at the federal and state level. And how much of it is going to garbage, to junk, to criminal enterprises instead of actually helping the people that I'd be more than willing to help if I actually thought they were being helped?
I don't want to help them. What if I don't want to help them? I don't want to help people that came to our country to defraud it. I just think they should leave.
That's, you know what, fair point. What I'm saying is it's sold to us as, there are children with autism that need, therapies. There are underserved communities that don't have a choice and they have to put their kids in daycare. It's like, all right, fine, to take a, but
maybe we should
right.
all just stop being so
You're
nice.
Right. You're right.
I think that's the
that will be the end result of this. That should be the end result of this.
We should just stop.
Not one penny more until you prove to me that it's not going to fraud. And by the way, that's how it works with your taxes. When the IRS comes knocking, you have to prove that you didn't steal. You have to prove that you were honest, right? They don't have to prove you lied. You have to prove that you were honest. So isn't that how this should work? Until you get one penny of my money in taxes, you should prove that you're legit.
Yeah. And that's it. I think that Elon Musk did a fantastic job with a lot of the stuff he did with Doge, but I don't know if it was his policy or someone else, but someone basically said how they decided to cut money was they cut off the credit cards of everyone and then saw who complained. They didn't go and ask people like, so are you using this website? No, they just cut everything off. They changed the credit card number and then let's see. And that's the right way to do it. I treat when my credit card number is stolen online, I'm like, well, this is a good opportunity to reset all of the Netflix and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And let's see what we
evaluate
really use.
what you really need and use.
Yeah, turn
that's
it all
right.
off.
And I think that's what most of us want at this point. We want to reset. We want to stop, go back, start again from scratch, what's really necessary and what isn't, because fraud and waste and abuse and lethargy gets built one on top of the other year after year after year until we get to this point. And I think a lot of people wanted that with Donald Trump the first time and certainly the second time. We want to do a little Control-Alt-Delete on our state and federal government and start from scratch again. And maybe these independent reports will lead us there. Walter Curt, this journalist, podcaster, citizen who's getting it done, he joins us to expand on this story at 8:05. Right now it's 6:21.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Bethany Mandel.
How are you?
Do you like game shows? Do you watch Jeopardy?
No.
Did you ever used to watch Jeopardy?
No.
All right. Well, just play along, will you?
Okay. I love it.
When Alex Trebek stepped down from his role as the host of
I know where
Jeopardy,
you're going with this. Yep.
Big investigation as to who would replace him, and who the Ken Jennings, who was the like superstar Jeopardy contestant, right? I think he broke all the records and made the most money. Ken Jennings, he was identified originally as the host of the show. I think they've been swapping it out. Honestly, I haven't been watching, but one of the things that was standing in the way of Ken Jennings taking over this role was that he was very active on social media with a lot of, hot political takes that were rather hostile toward conservative Republicans and certainly Trump. The producers of Jeopardy said, oh, yeah, he's cleaned up his act. He promises he's not going to be like that. Everything is fine. Don't worry. He just wants to host Jeopardy. And, yeah, he deleted all of his old posts. He apologized. He said, yeah, I'm in the public eye now. I'm not going to do that. Well, here's Ken Jennings on Blue Sky yesterday. Quote now, "The prosecute the former regime at every level candidate has my vote in 2028.
So I quoted Michael Jordan yesterday. I'm going to quote him again today. Maybe this will just be my thing, my shtick on this show. Republicans buy sneakers too. Republicans watch Jeopardy too. I will never understand why these people are so intent on blowing up half their viewership or half their customers or whatever it is because they think we care and that their opinion matters. It doesn't. It doesn't matter. No one cares. You're not important. I'm sorry.
Your thing can be Michael Jordan, Republicans buy sneakers too. My thing, as I started earlier this morning, will be the only answer to this is arrogance.
Yeah.
The reason they behave this way, you say you can't understand. You do understand it when you realize that they're arrogant. They're surrounded by people who all agree with them. They never hear the opposing viewpoint. They have no respect for the opposing viewpoint. And when you can dehumanize your political opponents, it makes it really easy to say things and do things like this. And they never suffer a repercussion. It's what happens in places like California where they have one-party rule, but maybe that's going to change if we can just get some honest elections. Jason Snead will join us next to talk about it.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37 now. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company here in your nation's capital. Coming up at 7:05, Ken Cuccinelli, Virginia's former Attorney General and also the former Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. He has some a pretty well-informed opinions on what happened in Minnesota. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully. But instead of listening to Joe Scarborough and Jake Tapper about the law and about law enforcement and about what happened in the shooting in Minneapolis, let's listen to people who know what they're talking about and know the law. Ken Cuccinelli will be our guest on that topic at 7:05. Also at 8:05, Walter Curt, who's uncovering Somali fraud of his own in Ohio. We just covered in our last segment. We'll talk to him at 8:05. Joining us now. Oh, and it's Bethany Mandel Day. Hello, Bethany. Good morning.
Good morning. Of the Mom Wars Substack and podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And slap my wrist for not remembering to plug that earlier. Mom Wars podcast. Go get that at Substack, the Mom Wars with Bethany Mandel. Joining us now, Jason Snead, Executive Director of Honest Elections Project. And boy, there's a lot to talk to you about, Jason. But I want to start with the good news. California, it looks like, has enough signatures to get a voter ID initiative on the ballot in November. That's huge. What's going to happen there?
Well, it's incredible to see. And, California is one of the most hostile states to election integrity laws, so the people are actually taking the matter into their own hands. In just the last 90 days, they've managed to gather over 1 million signatures in support of a voter ID law that will also require proof of citizenship to vote in California, too. So this is extraordinary. They need about 875,000 signatures, so they've cleared that threshold. They're going to continue to gather. They want to get a cushion. I'm sure that California officials, when they're verifying these signatures, are going to be going through them with a fine-tooth comb, trying to keep this thing off the ballot.
That is the wonderful irony. They will be checking every single signature, way more than they check on the mail-in ballots and drop-box ballots that they get every election day, which is incredibly ironic. But yeah, they're aiming for 1.2 million. I'm familiar with some of the people backing the initiative. And my understanding is poll after poll in California shows that overwhelming majorities support ID requirements in the Golden State.
Well, that's absolutely right, and that's true nationally, too, and that's another one of the ironies in this debate. The left is so hostile to voter ID, and they say that it's racially discriminatory. It's just designed to stop minorities from voting. And yet, when you look at polling data, including some of the polling data that we've done at Honest Elections Project, you see that 80 to 90% of the public supports these laws, including huge majorities of black voters, Hispanic voters, even Democratic mainstream voters. This is just a common sense policy, and it's really about ideology and partisan politics that is driving so many folks on the left to oppose these laws. There's absolutely no reason to do so.
So I have two questions that are related to each other. Number one, why California? And number two, what could the difference be in passing all of this to make sure that voters should be legal?
Well, California's hostility to voter ID, I think, makes this a particular flashpoint. And it's not just voter ID, right? They do everything they can in California to oppose almost every election integrity practice that most of the rest of the country even would say is common sense. The California legislature also last year put into place a law to prevent cities from requiring voter ID when one town, Huntington Beach, passed an ordinance to require voter ID. So they're not just apathetic or disinterested. They actually oppose these laws. So now the citizens in California are using their initiative process to actually do an end run around the legislature out there and bring this statewide. And given the polling data, I think it's got a fairly good chance of passing. And we got a long way to go from here to there, but if it does, that would be a huge blow to the left in their own biggest state. And I think that it would be a powerful signal of just how popular, just how common sense these laws are.
I would also add to that, Jason, that why California? Because California has a very robust ballot initiative culture for decades, going back to the 60s and 70s. The voters of California are used to seeing things like this on their ballots because the actual state representatives and state senators, they don't do anything in Sacramento except raise taxes. Let's turn to Minnesota. Minnesota obviously has been in the spotlight quite a bit in the last several weeks, and we've now learned one thing, because a lot of us are looking and saying, how does this happen? How do you get a governor and an attorney general who just looks the other way with all this fraud? And the answer seems to be their voting laws. Is it true that in Minnesota, you don't have to be registered? You show up at the polling place on Election Day, and you forget about not having ID. You can have a person vouch for you and just say, oh, yeah, this guy's fine. He's a citizen. He can vote. And that's good enough to cast a ballot?
That is 100% correct. In fact, if you look at the laws, if you go on the Secretary of State's website, that's exactly what it says. What they allow you to do is walk into a polling place on the day of the election. You can register on the spot. And while they make a lot of noise about, oh, you need to bring proof of residency and you need to see an ID and so forth, what they actually require at bottom is if you don't have any of those things, you just bring a friend who's willing to sign a piece of paper saying, yes, this person is eligible to vote, and then you get added to the voter rolls and you get given a ballot on the spot. And that person, the person vouching for you, can do that for 8 people in every election. It's an absurd system, and it opens the door wide to fraud in the election because it doesn't allow election officials any time or ability to verify that these people are citizens, are eligible to vote, and anything before you actually give them a ballot and allow them to vote in that election. It's absurd.
Wild.
And so there's a move now, the SAVE Act, a federal piece of legislation that would require photo ID and proof of citizenship to register and to vote nationwide, has made it through the House. It's sitting in the Senate. Many voices in the Senate think that that's one of the reasons why they should get rid of the filibuster so they could move the SAVE Act through. I hear both sides of the argument with regard to voter integrity, people that I respect who say, yes, we need to have voter ID, we need to have proof of citizenship, but the last thing you want is a federal law. This should still be at the state level, because as soon as you open the door to letting the federal government regulate these elections, that means when the Democrats are in charge, they'll be able to undo everything. Where do you stand on that, Jason?
Well, I think that the filibuster is extraordinarily important to protect against a federal takeover of elections. And just 5 years ago, that's exactly what we were looking down the barrel at when you had the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress threatening to take over the nation's elections, get rid of all of the state's election integrity laws, and really put Washington bureaucrats in charge of this and level down on security nationwide. And that being said, I would think that you shouldn't have to get rid of the filibuster to pass the SAVE Act, because as you said, the SAVE Act is really about one very fundamental thing: ensuring that only American citizens are voting and deciding American elections. And that's something that less than 10% of the public disagrees with, right? So we're talking about a 90-10 issue. I would think that there should be at least some folks on the left in the Senate that would be willing to stand up and say, you know what, enough is enough. I don't want non-citizens voting in our elections. Let's get this done.
That's a great point, and we got to leave it there. Jason SNEAD, Executive Director of Honest Elections Project. But if Republicans can't win an election next November by saying the Democrat you've got in the Senate right now, they're opposed to proving that only citizens are voting in every election. If you can't win on that argument, I don't know what to tell you. Make the political case and put the pressure on Democrats to defend that nonsense. It's 6:45.
This morning on the Chris Plant Show, an ICE agent involved in a shooting in Minneapolis. Will the Democrats riot in Seattle and fire on Fort Sumter? 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Bethany, we might have to start a new segment here called Don't Say We Didn't Warn You, Virginia. It's
so sad.
Here's the first installment. Yesterday it was announced that incoming Democrat Governor Abigail Spanberger has appointed Dr. Sesha Joy Moon to serve as the Chief Diversity Officer and Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Now, the fact that we're even going to have a Chief Diversity Officer and Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is a problem. But now, what can we tell you about Dr. Sesha Joy Moon? Well, her resume is pretty impressive. Her last big gig, she was the chief brand strategist for one Jasmine Crockett.
I want to rewind for a moment and applaud your ability to say Chief Officer of System and Inclusion all in one breath.
Thank you.
So I try to be a positive person. I try always to look on the bright side, and I'm just going to take this moment to applaud your ability to do that in one breath.
Abigail Spanberger said that Moon's experience across government, education, and the nonprofit sectors gives her firsthand insight into the ways in which we can build a stronger, safer, and more prosperous Virginia for every family, because that all starts with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Do you ever feel like you're in the wrong line of work? Like maybe we should have started daycares and DEI consulting businesses.
If I didn't have to look my children in the eyes or myself in the mirror or meet my maker in the heavenly beyond, yeah, probably. Oh, one other thing about Dr. Sesha Joy Moon. Okay, can we pause for a moment? She was chief brand strategist for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Why does a congresswoman need a brand strategist?
Was this paid for with tax dollars?
I'm sure. I'm sure. One other resume item here. She identifies as a black queer woman. Wait a second. How does she know what a woman is? It's 6:52.